you. It completely changes your inner personality and you feel as if you're reborn right here. Given the same circumstances, the same body. And you put in more effort, and as we said on the first day, 1 year of even lackadaisical, casual approach to Gita can make a difference. But if you're concerted, you're determined, as he says, abhyasena vairagyena. If you have this initial abstinence, you have the capacity to set aside your trivial interests and focus on something that you really want to do. By God, you'll change. So this is the positive note on which he ends this chapter. We're not yet at the end, please. 44.
Purvabhyasena tenaiva kriyate yavashopi saha jignasurapi yogasya shadaramati vargate.
And there what happens? One is effortlessly carried by the Purvabhyasa, previous practice. Then he puts in a brief by merely wanting to know yoga, one transcends Shabda Brahman. Similar to the explanation before that. What he's saying here is, one is effortlessly carried by the previous practice. Purvabhyasa means samskara. Samskara is, I don't know how to explain that, upbringing, the environment in which you're brought up, includes your vasanas and the environment because they're linked. It makes such a difference. Those of you who were brought up since childhood with certain values, certain upbringing, you'll find it in our culture, it's like that. The moment you wake up, and you were supposed to wake up early in Brahma Muhurta time. Brahma Muhurta means between 4 and 6 a.m. You got that? Wake up early, and after freshening up, you're supposed to do your morning prayers, and what a high you get out of it. High means not alcohol high, please. Spiritual high. When you repeat, for instance, a prayer like Shankaracharya's invocation in the Atmabodha. Pratasmarami rudisam spuradatma tattvam satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam yat swapna jagara sushuptam aveti nityam Tat Brahma Nishkalamam Nacha Bhuta Sangha. You may not understand the rest of it, but the basic idea is that in early morning I wake up and I remember that Atman, which pervades Sat Chit Sukham, inert objects, living beings in the waking, dream and deep sleep states. And he says that entity which is alert, awake to Yat Swapna Jagara Sushupta, in the waking, dream and deep sleep states. That Brahman, that indivisible Brahman am I, not this assemblage of elements. You begin the day with that, by God, it has a power. Try it. And then right through the day, you're supposed to work in a worshipful manner, as if you're doing service to God, not to yourself. And at the end of the day, after you finish all your work and you come home and you're relaxed, don't switch on the TV. Sit there and either listen to a few bhajans or sing them yourself. And in the old days, there was collective singing. Didn't matter whether you were singing in tune or off tune. What mattered is the spirit. And all the family members got together, and the little differences and the little pinpricks and the little problems that come between individuals were completely forgotten in this cohesive music. And when you're brought up in these samskaras, this culture, what a difference it makes. Today, unfortunately, it's all lost. First of all, you don't wake up before 6 a.m. The moment you wake up, what you want to watch is news, or what is the stock market or rupee price, or I don't know what you watch. And children also wake up, first thing, Cartoon Network. As someone told me, a Sanskrit scholar told me, he said, you people learn, what is that? Silly nursery rhymes which don't make sense to anybody, so you lead a senseless life. You watch Cartoon Network, you become a cartoon the rest of your life. That's samskaras. So what are these samskaras? First you begin with what is known as vidhi nishedh, do's and don'ts. That's what he's saying here. What is this Shabda Brahman? Shabda Brahman means Vedas. the Vedas cater to different classes of people. The lowest class of people that it deals with is people who are incapable of thinking or working things out for themselves. They need to be given commandments, do's and don'ts. This is vidhi nishedh, do's, don'ts. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, things like that. Once you follow this, then you understand that I don't need somebody else to tell me what to do and what not to do. I have a conscience, I have a subtle intellect which, if I follow, I can work things out for myself. So you move from the letter of the spirit, from the letter of the scriptures to the spirit, and then you don't need the help of these do's and don'ts. Vedic injunctions you no longer need. Then you move to the area what is known as rituals, Havan, and all the various Vedic rituals that are there, they go slightly beyond do's and don'ts. And when you are there present when these Vedic rituals are being performed, even till this day, you don't understand a word of what is happening. It has an effect. It has, I don't know how to put it, but it has some effect on you. Then the thinkers go beyond that and get the message of the Vedas, which is spiritual sadhana, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, uparati means withdrawal from the world, dharana, concentration, dhyana, meditation, and that state of self-realization. The last thing that the Vedas speak of, the entire Vedas speak of Shabda. The only Shabda means sound. The highest ideal representative symbol of Atman is the sound Om. And that sound Om has a brilliant effect on humanity. Just the chant of that Om has a certain effect on you. Plus, if you understand the meaning of it, that Om consists of 3 syllables, A, U and Ma, which represent the waking, dream and deep sleep states. And that sound is based on the foundation of silence. Similarly, the waking, dream and deep sleep states are established on the silence of Atman. And that is the 4th state. And when you're chanting Om, you're going through this sound only to get to that silence, the 4th plane of consciousness. If you chant Om with this understanding and the effect that the sound itself has on you, by merely wishing to know yoga, jidnyasurapi, you transcend this and get to the state of Brahman. What he's saying is these accumulated, why does he say effortlessly carried? Because the accumulated spiritual assets help you. Just as when you look at someone with accumulated material assets, that means material assets that have been gathered over the 3-4 generations. What do you say? Oh, he was born with a silver spoon in the mouth. What does it mean? He's got a distinct advantage. But you don't understand, much better than that material advantage is if you have accumulated spiritual assets is so fantastic. That just a casual thought, merely wishing to know Brahman sparks you off into the 4th plane of consciousness. Because you've done your homework before. It's like in chemistry, titration. You understand titration? Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's a chemical in a burette and there's another chemical in a flask, and you're supposed to drop that drop by drop in to measure how much of it combines with it. I'm just putting it in as layman term as possible. And what happens is that you keep dropping it drop by drop, nothing happens to it. And then one last drop and there's a precipitate. Right? So is it the last drop that has caused the precipitate? Yes, no? Yes and no. It is that last drop plus all the other drops that have gone in. Similarly, this jidnyasurapi, that merely wishing to know Brahman, is it that last thought that has got you to the realization? Yes and no. Yes, the last thought, plus all the thoughts that have gone, all the efforts that you've put in, not only in this life, in all the past lives put together, the spiritual assets, accumulated spiritual assets is a force to reckon with. So look into your spiritual balance sheet, not your material balance sheet. Material balance sheet will come and go, it will go up and down. Spiritual balance sheet will stand by you irrespective. The whole world comes to an end. This will not go. This is the message. 45.
प्रयत्नाद्यतमानस्तु योगी संशुद्ध किल्बिषः अनेकजन्म संसिद्धः ततो याति परां गतिम्.
Thus the yogi, diligently exerting, totally cleansed of sin, perfected through many births, gains the supreme goal. And this is the culmination of all that he has been speaking of from the first chapter onwards. What a dramatic entry into that state of realization. So he says, thus this yogi, diligently exerting, totally cleansed of sin. Cleansed of sin means vasanas. Perfected through many births. This is a wonderful concept. Aneka janma samsiddha. Siddha means accomplished, acquired, established, perfected. So there must be this commitment to perfection. And when you are committed to perfection, there is this intolerance of inefficiency. You have to have that, otherwise you don't improve. You can't say, I'll be an artist and paint, and never mind who understands, I'll paint wrong strokes, people will appreciate. Yes, it is true, people will appreciate. But whether you will appreciate or depreciate is the question. So that commitment, aneka janma samsiddha. When you read this, you'll say, Are aneka janma samsiddha, na? After many, many births, I'll think about it in my next birth. To this birth I will enjoy. It's accumulate. Now Narada was supposed to be a mischievous sage, full of mischief. So apparently one day he was walking along the Himalayas and he came across two sages in meditation. One person who was meditating, he was really not interested in realization. But he was sitting there because his friend was also there. So while he was supposed to meditate, in one eye he was looking who's coming and who's going. And he saw Narada, distraction, he was waiting for distractions to come. So he opened his eyes and said, prostrated to him and said, Narad Muni, where are you going? He says, I'm going to heaven. So he says, you're going to heaven, please find out when I will realize whether this janma or next janma. So Narada said, no problem, everything is written there in heaven. It's not, I'm just... And then he went further and there was this other sage who was deep in meditation and genuinely struggling to get there. But because Narada was mischievous, so he made a noise there, he had to open his eyes and he saw Narada. Then very devotedly he asked him, where are you going? So he says, I'm going to heaven. Can you please find out how many more janmas I have before I get to the state of realization? So Narada said, no problem. And he went. He just turned a few corners, he didn't go to heaven, came back. And when he came back, he told this person who was actually the genuine sage, who was actually on the verge of realization. He went to him first and he says, I've got bad news for you. He said, what? You've got aneka janma. You see that, the tamarind tree? As many leaves as there are in the tamarind tree, that many janmas you have to go through before you realize. So this person was committed. It didn't bother him. He says, oh Narada, thank you so much. And he prostrated to him, I'm very happy. Why? Because from an infinite number of janmas, it's come to a finite number. And he sat down in meditation in real earnest. Then he went to the insincere sage. And he knew that he was very far from realization. But he told him, I've got very good news for you. What is the good news? This janma you're going to realize. And he said, really? This janma I'm going to realize. And he started packing while Narada was talking. He said, where are you going? I'm going to Bombay to indulge, to enjoy the world before I get to realization. So it depends on your attitude. If you're sincere, you don't care how many janmas there are. however many janmas there are, what is to prevent you, this one, from being the last? With that spirit you go on. 46.
तपस्विभ्योऽधिको योगी ज्ञानिभ्योऽपि मतोऽधिकः कर्मिभ्यश्चाधिको योगी तस्माद्योगी भवार्जुन.
This is an extremely inspiring verse. The yogi is considered to be better than the ascetic, surpasses the knowledgeable, and is superior to performers of action. Tasmat, therefore, be a yogi, O Arjuna. So what does he mean? It sounds all complicated. What he means is, a tapasvi is a person who is following bhakti marga, prayer, worship, etc. But he has got caught up in that, he's got involved in that, and he's forgotten the end. The end is self-realization, to go beyond the bhakti marga, to go beyond the course and reach the result. You find people like this. So all that matters to them is which day of the week is it, which day should I do upvas, and what is that upvas to be, and which day of the week should I sing which bhajan, and all this, which day of the week should I go to which temple. Sincere, no doubt, but they're caught up, involved, and they've lost sight of the ideal. Second, jnani, knowledge seeker. Some of you, I hope, are not like that. You'll say, oh, 6th chapter is over, now let me go hunting for where the 7th chapter is. Or let's say, this Upanishad I've done, that Upanishad I haven't done. I've studied the Gita, I haven't studied the Quran or the Bible. We're not suggesting that you should not study. But to seek knowledge just for the sake of knowledge, you add further burden to yourself. The purpose of knowledge is to be able to see through the world and seek something beyond it. As the poet said, a man that looks on glass, on it may stay his eye, or if he chooseth, through it pass, and then the heaven espy. So the paths of bhakti, knowledge, jnana and karma have been given to us to look beyond it, not beyond the world, not to get further stuck in the world. Karmi is a person who is involved in acts of service. But deep down there's an involvement, there's an attachment to that act of service. That's why people build temples and name it after themselves. They don't name the temple after the deity, after your family. Now, how can it be? If your name is Shah, you can't build a temple and say Shah temple. So there has to be something beyond it. The Ishavasya Upanishad says this, Andham tama pravishanti ye vidyam upasate. Those who worship avidya, ignorance, means those who are totally involved in the world, following materialistic pursuits, they are in andham tamaha, blinding darkness. That is understandable. You don't need an Upanishad to tell you that. But what he says after that is what makes you sit up. He says, Tato bhuya ivate tamo yau vidyayam rataha. Those who revel in vidya are in greater darkness. Meaning, those who have got caught in the spiritual practices, and you get caught because the return that you get from spiritual pursuit is far greater, far higher than running after material things. So the attachment is that much stronger and more difficult to get out of. You're attached to the world is bad enough, but at least you can get out of it. You get attached to the spiritual practices, you've had it. That's what he's saying here. Therefore, right from the beginning, you have to keep the end in mind. Understand that all this is a means to an end. It's like when you're in the dream, whether the dreamer is in the pink of health or has a tumor in the brain is of no consequence to the waker. What you have to worry about is the tumor in the brain we have here in the waking state. And that tumor is arrogance, ignorance, desire. Focus on that and get out of it. Understand that you have entered this world with a transit visa. Remember, you don't have a permanent visa. You don't have, what is it called? Resident visa. You are on a transit visa. And you're going somewhere else to your permanent abode. Make sure that that is something that you get. Don't worry about this transit visa. It's like you're going to London via Dubai. 48 hours you're staying in Dubai. Will you get into what kind of government do they have? Do they have democracy or autocracy? It's none of your business. You get into Dubai, stay in a nice place, go shopping, finish, that's it, move on to London. Right? Similarly, we are born in this world in a transit visa. Understand that it doesn't matter what happens here. What matters is what's going to happen at the end, after it all ends. 47. Therefore, tasman, be a yogi. 47.
योगिनामपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां समे युक्ततमो मतः.
And among all yogis, one whose inner self is merged in me, who worships me with Shraddha, faith, is regarded by me to be most united. He ends with a magnificent verse here. So what he's saying in the previous verse, he says, be a yogi, be focused. Don't get lost in the spiritual alleys of karma, bhakti or jnana yoga. Keep the end in mind and pursue it. And if you do that, of all the yogis, of all the people who are focused on getting to realization, one whose inner self is merged in me. You know what he means by merged in me? That's the only thing that matters, nothing else matters. Inner self merged in me is like an actor who plays various roles, but he's merged in his identity. He never forgets who his real identity is. These are all his, this is not his real life, it's his real life. He doesn't get entangled, involved in any of the roles he plays, yet he plays all the roles magnificently, with Shraddha, with dedication, with devotion. And he worships me through these actions. What a fabulous statement. See, you're in the world and you want to get to the fourth plane of consciousness. How will you conduct yourself here? Everything that you do, whatever it is that you're engaged in, you consider it as your oblation to the Lord, your contribution, your little service, your act of thanksgiving to God. Then how will you do it? You will do it with Shraddha, with a worshipful attitude. This is something that we need to inculcate in everything that you perform, whether you're driving a car, or you're parking the car, or you're cooking a meal, or you're writing a letter, or you're sending an email to someone. If you're fully concentrating on it and you consider it sacred, then what comes out of you will be perfection. And that's what he's saying here. So never mind whether you get the fourth plane of consciousness or not, but at least your life here will be well assured. And this is what he's talking about. Go about it objectively, don't get involved in anything that the world has to offer. Shraddha, bhajate, these are the words he uses. Bhajate means worship. Everything that you do must be sacred to you, whatever it is. If it is not sacred, if you don't have the sanctity for it, don't do it. But if you do it with your full dedication and dedication. And that's what makes the difference. Why Western countries, why the United States has reached such amazing levels of excellence is because they have this dedication to their work at least. What good there is in them we need to take. We are in a state of complete mediocrity. There's no such thing as excellence in our lives. And yet we are beneficiaries of this knowledge that speaks of dedication, that speaks of worship, that speaks of Shraddha. At least inculcate a little bit of what it's talking about. Remember this right through your life. This one verse is enough to get you to unravel the mysteries of nature and get you to that state of perfection. And it is in the scheme of things that this is the last verse. And hopefully you'll go back home today with this remembrance. We hope this is not the end, but only the beginning of our interaction and our study of the Gita.
Om Tat Sada इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासूपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे ध्यानयोगो नाम षष्ठोऽध्यायः।
In all humility, to signify that the study of the Gita has not ended but only begun,